What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? I am Tom Leuthner. Welcome back into Nuggets today. I got a few topics I want to cover here. Some are a little controversial, people I know, and I'll get into that. But this first one it was going to be one player, and I think I turned it into around three players, but these are players I think Denver should close off. The most obvious answer, as we all know, is Aaron Gordon. Quote unquote, Mr. Nugget, the guy who's been there for the Nuggets. He took the biggest leap in his game, and not only did he do it, but Christian Brown did it as well. And that's one of the other guys I'm going to get into. But Aaron Gordon has been a massive player for this team, not just when it comes to his play, but his attitude around the locker room, his leadership that we've seen, what he brings to the table when it comes to playing. You have to close him off. I think obviously there's not any rumors about Aaron Gordon and trading him, but at the same time, I don't think that you should even entertain any idea. He's one of our best defensive players. He's one of Denver's best defensive players. He was able to light the three ball up this year. His shooting splits were phenomenal compared to what they were a year ago, 2 years ago. So I think that Denver just immediately declines anything that has to do with Aaron Gordon in the conversations. And obviously, like I just said, Christian Brown is the next guy. The toughest thing with Brown is his extension is going to be expensive just because he proved he's able to get that kind of money now, whether it comes to 15 million, whether it comes to 20 million, whether it comes to 30 million a year, which I think is closer to what everybody is saying. It's going to be around 30 million. Denver's going to have to pay that if they want to keep him around. Obviously, there's other extensions that Denver's going to have to worry about, like Jokic, like Peyton Watson, but I think that Christian Brown is the most important one of those guys. Obviously, Jokic is way more important, but when it comes to locking him up, a younger player, Christian Brown is super important to go out and extend. I do not want to see him traded. I know that a lot of people don't. The other guy I want to break down here, going back real quick before I get into that, the other thing I would like to see from Christian Brown, if Denver does extend him for the price that he is worth, is I would like to see him be able to create his own shots more. You're able to get this kind of contract because you were playing phenomenally around Jokic, around Jamal Murray, around MPJ, around Aaron Gordon. You were good enough to cover that role for KCP. The only thing I didn't like was again, I don't want to say lack of three-point shooting because he did shoot very well compared to what he did the year before. His splits went up like crazy. His stats obviously went up like crazy. But I would like to see more shot creating from Brown and working on that in the offseason, strictly because when Jamal comes off the court, if there's no backup next year, or for us is the backup still, if Jokic comes off the court, if MPJ is injured, you're going to have to create your own shots more, and I would like to see that if you're going to be extended. The last guy that I think Denver should close off is Julian Strawther. Why? Well, because he's a spark plug. We saw him have I know it's, I don't want to overreact over one crazy game, but his stats were semi-decent when you brought him in the regular season. What I think Denver needs to do is maybe work on getting him to around an efficient 10 to 13 points if possible. His again, like I said, his stats were good. He was finally getting the minutes prior to injury. And when he came into the playoffs, he was good enough to actually play with Denver's bench. So I think that you do not trade him because there's a lot of talk around the trades to send Strawther away. Obviously, it's all in the Denver community and there's no actual rumors right now. But it does not make sense because you can develop him into a player off your bench who's going to give you a legitimate, efficient 12 to 13 points if you develop him the right way and if you give him the opportunity. I do think he is a very good six-man for Denver next year if they're not able to bring in anybody better. This next topic I want to hop into, like I was just saying, is all community talk. But the community talk around Trae Young needs to be stopped. Trae Young, in my opinion, he's a fantastic player. I know that everybody thinks he's a shot chucker, but he sets up his teammates well. And I know that's maybe what Denver needs. But at the same time, if you look at what it would take for Denver to trade for a guy like Trae Young, I believe the trades were around Jamal Murray, which I know I said I'm fine with shopping. Not that I want to trade him. I do think it might help Denver strictly because of his contract. But I don't think it makes sense to trade a guy like Murray along with Julian Strawther and Zeke Naji or Peyton Watson for a guy like Trae Young because it doesn't make sense. I know that Denver may need another superstar, and it may take a guy like Jamal Murray, or it may take a guy like MPJ, but at the same time, it does not make sense to drop their bench. It does not make sense to drop two bench players like a guy like Watson and Strawther who can actually help you when that's what you're lacking. The same thing with the Kevin Durant talks. I know that it's very unlikely that Denver is going to trade for a guy like this strictly because they don't have the assets that other teams have. But at the same time, if they do attempt to make a move, why are you trading your bench when that's the one thing you were lacking the entire season and offseason was bench play? again, a guy like Strother, I just said, I think could be a good spark plug for you off the bench. I covered players who I think they could, Denver can attempt to develop, but that does not make sense. So that has to stop within the community. I know I say some things that people don't like are controversial for them, and that's going to be something I get into. But at the same time, Trae Young does not make sense for Denver. You're semi-lacking the defense from Jokic. I know that he has his good defense when it comes to the certain aspects of his game. But if you think that Jokic isn't good defensively, why is Trae Young a better fit for Denver when that doesn't make sense at all? Something else I've been seeing is maybe trading for somebody off the bench. So this is somebody that I think, again, Denver should attempt to look for ideas to trade for him. And again, there's no reports out there that this should happen. I'm just trying to look at some things with the lack of rumors and updates out that could help Denver off the bench. And one of those guys may be Kevin Huerter. I think that Huerter had a very bad season compared to what he is able to be as a player. I know that him and Julian Strother are maybe the same archetype, but at the same time, you look at a team like the Pacers right now who are playing in a conference finals who have Nembhard and Nesmith who are right around the same player. They have a guy like Ben Shepherd off their bench who is a second-round pick who's the same kind of player. So if Denver's able to maybe shop and trade a guy like Najee, which I know probably wouldn't happen, and maybe a future first for a guy like Huerter to try to win now, why not even attempt to look at the idea of entertaining that? Again, I know it's probably a long shot, and we're probably going to have to sit here, watch the Denver Nuggets attempt to pick up some vets, which I'm fine with. I think that it could work if you get the right vets, and I'm just trying to, be as positive as I can and maybe talk some things into existence. But I think a guy like Huerter would be good for the right price. Obviously, I don't want Denver to trade strictly MPJ for Huerter, or maybe a package for them. And again, I know that the MPJ takes are controversial, and I've heard you guys loud and clear. So this is the last time I want to attempt to cover that, because this is something I saw and I think it's super interesting. But would this move be possible for Denver? Do I think it's realistic? No, not at all. But I do think it's interesting because it would help Denver. And again, this is the last time I'll cover the MPJ trades, but I want to throw it out one more time strictly because I've seen this trade from multiple people, multiple different platforms, and there's multiple ways to do it. The first way I saw was trading MPJ in a three-team deal with Dario Saric to Detroit, Toby Harris, Zeke Naji, Denver's 31 first, and Detroit's 27th first goes to Chicago, or goes to Brooklyn Nets rather, and Isaiah Stewart and Cam Johnson to Denver. That would be ideal for Denver. Obviously, like I said, I don't think it's hyper realistic, but I do think it would be an amazing trade. The other trade I saw was MPJ and I believe the 31 first for Cam Johnson. I think it's a good trade. The only way I would trade MPJ, and I've said this multiple times, this is the last time I'll cover it, is for the depth. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. And at this point, I went back, I've watched my recent videos, I've seen what you guys have said, and I'm done with the MPJ talk just because I think it's unrealistic at this point, and you guys are right. Will we see them shop him? Maybe. But again, like I said, I think MPJ plays a massive factor in this team when he's healthy. I think I was just super frustrated with him recently because of his lack of performance due to an injury that he continued to play through. And I think that the fact that David Adelman wouldn't bench him, even though he was injured, sort of, ticked me off and got me a little annoyed. And I became hyper fixated on that topic. And now I'm going to move on from it because, again, until there's actual rumors about who they will trade him for, I will stop talking about it. But I do think that that's an interesting trade if Denver can land a guy like Stewart and Johnson, because that takes care of most of your problems, and you're able to dump a contract of Dario Saric, you're able to dump the contract of MPJ, you're able to, obviously you're moving on from a later first-round pick, but at the same time, I think that it would be the ideal fit because you're getting your bench center and you're getting MPJ's replacement. Maybe he's not as good of a shooter, but at the same time, he plays a role that you need him to play. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today, Nuggets Nation. Thank you for checking it out, and I'll talk to you guys soon.